Susan Wigden, and I am a children's author. Would anybody like to tell us what an author is? Can you tell us? This girl right here.
It's a person who writes books.
A person who writes books. And there are authors for all different types of books. Books for adults, books for children, on all different topics. And in order to be an author, you really need to be dedicated. Does anybody know what the word dedicated means? It's a tough one to think. When someone is dedicated. Any guesses? Looks like you were thinking about it. Okay, this boy right here.
It means you have like a passion.
It means I have a passion for it.
Oh, that's good. Nice.
Yes.
I like it.
That's exactly right. When you have a passion for something, you become very dedicated towards it. It means you love to do something so much that you work so hard at it. And it could be anything at all that you love to do. Now, I am not an illustrator. Does anyone know what an illustrator does?
All better know.
Okay, this
A
one.
person who draws pictures.
Right, it's like an artist. The name of the person who illustrated the funny pictures for suppose at the supermarket is Corey Colman. She drew the pictures. And I do want to mention that if you have any questions at the end of this presentation, you can feel free to ask me. Now, I've written several children's books, and this one is called a sequel. Anybody know what that word means? That's a tough one, a sequel. Okay, well, a sequel is a continuation of a book. My first book was called Suppose, and that was a silly book too. So I decided to write Suppose at the supermarket. And what I'm going to tell you is to pay attention to each page, because at the end we're going to play a really fun game. So listening is really important. Does anybody know what that word means? That's a real... This girl right here.
If you get like, hand the book to like someone.
If you...
Like dedicate the book to like somebody.
If I dedicate the book to someone, and as an author, you have the right to dedicate the book to certain people. I wrote, this picture book is dedicated to my son Lee, who as an adult still has my out-of-the-box way of thinking. And to my husband Bruce, who always manages to put up with the two of us. Special thanks to the extremely talented and creative artist, Corey Colman, who managed to bring life to the supermarket. And Corey dedicated to for children and adults everywhere who see the world through their beautifully painted imaginations. Okay, so that was the dedication. And you notice I said, my son who sees things out of the box. What does that mean, out of the box? Wow.
It means you think really hard and you imagine.
You think really hard and you imagine. Okay, good job. Wow. Are you sure you people are second graders? Wow, this is very impressive. Okay, I'm ready to begin reading. And remember, it's fine to laugh. That's what we're here for now. Some books are really serious, and some books, it's just fun to laugh. Okay. Suppose the olives jumped out of the can and they started their own rock band. Suppose the apple wore a wig and did the hula with a fig. Suppose the pickles and the fish sat at a table with a knish.
What's a fish?
It's a potato-like product. Suppose the lettuce took off a leaf and put it on the head of a 2-pound beef. Suppose the pudding had one eye and went to skate with the apple pie. Potatoes and the peas sang a lullaby to the cheese.
To the cheese yawning.
Suppose a lollipop unwrapped itself and sat with the rye breads on a shelf. Suppose the peaches in the can had a mustache like a man. Suppose the soup started to skip and held hands with a potato chip. Suppose the grapes in the juice drink used a life preserver when they started to sink. Suppose the blueberry and banana cake played a game of golf with a sirloin steak. Suppose all these things were true. The supermarket would be a silly view.
Exciting.
Usually they say, what is your favorite color? But these are 4th and 5th grade questions. Teachers, that's great, okay? Anybody else? Any boys with a question? Okay.
Do you like to write books?
I love to write stories because if you're ever lonely or bored or sad and you write a story, you get happy and it's fun and you could share it with people. Anybody who didn't ask a question that wants to ask? Okay, you?
In my car once, I wrote a story about these 2 people that went on an adventure.
How cool is that? How cool is that? So you turned your car ride into something really creative. Good job for you. One last question from a person who's...
Do you write rhymes, only rhymes?
Okay, that's a good question. It so happens that all the picture books, she just asked if I only write rhymes.
Oh, wow.
It so happens that all of the picture books that I have written so far have been rhymes, and those are the ones that the publishers wanted. I have submitted, meaning sent, other stories, and so far nobody said they want them, but the rhymes seem to be the ones.
When you were writing one day, did you ever get sad or like something encouraged you wanted to write?
Did someone encourage me when I wanted to write? Well, yes, sometimes I'd write a story and I'd think, I wonder if this is good enough and maybe people will like it. And then my husband or my son or my friends, I would share it with them and they would say, that's very good. You did a good job. So it's good to read your writings to people so that they encourage you. And one last question. Okay.
Good. What do you
Okay, you want to think for a second? Sometimes before we speak, we forget that happens. You think about it. Did you have one thing to say?
How long have you been writing books?
Oh, since I was a little girl. I've always had a notebook and I was always writing. But my first published book was called Suppose. Did you remember what you were going to say?
read Supposed. I read that to them.
Okay, did you?
Yeah, we read it. Maybe you weren't there.
Okay, I know you're really anxious for a last question. Okay, it's hard for me to say.
How did you get them to come into real books?
In other words, how did they become published? Okay, that's amazing. Okay, well, that's for a talk for the older fourth graders, which is the process, which you type up your manuscript, which is the story, and then you need to send it either in the mail, at the post office, or through email to publishers. And if they like it, they turn it into books for you. But that's an excellent question. And I have to say that these 2 second grade classes have been my best audience ever. Ever. And I don't know if any of you have taken a look at my website. Maybe teachers, you could let them, I don't know if it's the computer here, and you could see all the places that I've been to. But second graders that are really like fourth graders, and I want to compliment you and tell you you are great. And guess what? I have a feeling that by the time, see, I live part-time in Delray Beach, Florida, and part-time in New York. And guess what? When you girls and guys are in the 3rd grade, I'm going to come back. How about that, teachers?
Yes.
I'm going to come back when they are in 3rd grade, I promise that.
Okay.
And probably it's going to be around November, and the book is going to be called Silly Rhymes for Fun Times. And those are separate stories. They're longer, about silly things that can happen when you're at the dentist and when your grandma makes meatballs that you don't like. So that's really, really funny. And some of it is about a ghost in the house that really wasn't a ghost. But it's going to be lots of fun, and I promise to be back. I'm going to see all of you. Remember in November, okay? Remember in November. Remember in November.
And actually, what we're going to do in the next month or so, I think we're going to make our own Suppose at Unity School Book.
Wow.
We're each going to do a page. So, and then maybe we can show that to you in November.
Oh,
We'll do it this
that
year.
would be very, very cool. I would love to see that.
Boys and girls would
Create any scenes with Suppose.
Yeah.
Outdoors, you could even do Suppose about your teachers.
That might be Unity School.
You could do Suppose about your teachers. Suppose your teacher wore a shoe, one was brown and one was blue.
Ooh.